Hello, everyone. I'm Mason Bean with the Wise News Network, and in a moment, you'll hear from a familiar face from many Cherryville residents, Dr. Thomas White. He's brought a company called Tekton Research to our town, which means that you may now be able to participate in clinical trials. Dr. White is going to explain more about Tekton, but while I still have you, if you're enjoying what we're doing, be sure to drop down below and give us a like.
Tekton Research is a clinical research company. It's headquartered in Austin, Texas. They have a presence in 7 states. North Carolina was one of the most recent, our particular site, and then the most recent was in Virginia. So they have a presence in Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, and then Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas. So it's a company that's been around since 2006. They have a lot of experience and a pretty big footprint in the Midwest and now in the South. So they have over 30 what you'd call principal investigators, physicians like myself, who are on research sites, and over, I think, estimated over 200 employees. So it's a pretty big entity. It has a lot of experience. It's been around. They've been involved in many, many studies. So Tekton knows what it's doing, and I think does it very well, very carefully. I think when people think about research in medicine or healthcare, sometimes the first image they have is that of what I would call basic research. So you think of the Big Bang Theory TV show, right? So somebody's in a laboratory, they're playing with test tubes and other devices and chemicals and mixing things. Well, that's research. That's what we would call basic research. That may be where the drug is discovered or developed, but clinical research is what Tekton does, and that's what we'll be doing here. So in clinical research, it's not really done in a laboratory like you would commonly think of. It's done in a practice setting like this, and instead of involving test tubes and beakers and chemicals and microscopes, it involves people. So in clinical research, the intent is to try to determine whether a particular drug, for instance, is safe, is it effective, what's the most effective dose, and it's typically drugs that are in development to come to market. And again, it involves participants, volunteers. Very important to stress that folks who participate in clinical research and clinical studies, it's volunteer. No one's coerced to do it. No one's arm is twisted. No one's overly encouraged. It's an opportunity. And folks enter studies typically with the motivation to try to help advance science, to help learn, to help get, hopefully, a needed drug to market, but only if it's safe and only if we know it's effective. There are these opportunities. So if you're in a much larger city, maybe has a university, you would see advertisements or notices, hey, there's a clinical research study involving migraine headaches. Are you interested? Call this number. Well, that's common in larger cities. It's common in university towns, academic environments, but not in small towns. So the first thing it's going to do is give people in the community an opportunity to participate in those. I think it'll be educational. I think it'll be educational in that I think we will all have a better appreciation of how drugs and other devices, vaccines, what have you, get to market. So I think it'll be an opportunity to participate, to contribute to science, but also learn a little bit more about the medicines that we take and how they become available. Because I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about that. There's understandably sometimes a little fear and skepticism or doubt about medications and how they get approved. And I think this will illustrate that when things come to market, they've been tested, they've been scrutinized, and I think that would give all of us a little better faith in what we do. So if you think about a medicine that you took this morning, maybe it was an antibiotic. You think about the blood pressure medicine your parent maybe is going to take tonight, or a blood thinner your grandparent is going to take this afternoon. All those drugs got to market the same way. They got to market through a clinical research trial. And those trials are very detailed. They're all about safety, as well as whether the particular drug works. So I think this will be educational, and again, opportunity to actually understand how medicines that we use every day, how they get to come to our pharmacies and how they get put in our hands. After several investigations into how we could do it and with whom could I work, Tekton seemed like the right fit. And there were a number of reasons. And one is that Tekton has been very committed. One of their new missions is to develop clinical research in small communities. And that really attracted me and interested me for Tekton to have that priority. Because if you think about it, if all the medications that come to market or vaccines that come to market or what have you are only tested in populations in large cities, in Chicago's and LA and New York, that's good, but that may not always, population-wise, genetically, a lot of factors, that may not always translate to small communities in all parts of the country. So yes, we're a small community. Anyone who wants to look at the studies that Tekton's going to be offering here, they don't have to be from the Cherryville city limits. They can be from the surrounding community. And again, the important thing is that we are now bringing clinical research to small communities. And that's really important for research to be better and for medications to be tested in the right populations, in all populations. And patients, citizens in the community, others who have an interest can call and they'll learn more about what the study is going to entail. Once they have an interest, they may come in to see if they qualify. Because with every study, there are criteria that you must be between these certain ages, you can't be on these particular medicines, so there's a long list typically for every study that you have to meet these particular criteria. And if you have these particular things, you can't be in the study. So the interested individual goes through that process. We see if they qualify or not. And then once they're enrolled in the study, then typically they're coming in for visits. It might be weekly, might be monthly, it may be quarterly. And typically they are administered, let's say it's a medication, so half the patients may be receiving this particular medication that maybe is new and being investigated. The other half is receiving standard treatment, what's available already on the market. And then the results of who's benefiting, who's not benefiting, all that's kept blinded. So it's not known to me, it's not known to our staff here. Only when the study is finished do we sort of uncover all that, and then we find out, okay, who, Mr. Jones happened to get the new medication, and Mr. Smith over here was getting standard treatment. And all that's monitored very closely. So there's a sponsor who is trying to bring or see if a particular medicine is worthy, safe, and effective to come to market. There's us with Tekton, and then there's a objective review board, if you will, that's kind of in between those to make sure that everything's being done properly, everything's being done safely. If a participant has a side effect or an issue, that it's addressed and it's investigated and it's reported. So that's to keep everybody on it.
Now that we've got a firm grip on what Tekton Research does, Dr. Wise is going to focus in a little more on this particular study, starting off discussing why anonymity is so important to clinical trials. Let's go to that now.
I think it keeps everyone including the study participant. It keeps the investigator, like myself, Tekton is the company, everyone involved, it keeps them honest. So, there's a great power of suggestion that if I give you a particular medication, we want to see truthfully and objectively, is it working? So the first study that we'll be participating in is a study that looks at patients who have very high triglycerides. So briefly, not to bore anybody, but the liver actually puts out into our circulation two fats in particular, cholesterol and triglycerides. Cholesterol is used to build hormones, and triglycerides are put out by the liver basically to serve as energy. So if you go to Crowder's Mountain this weekend to hike, and your body's going to use triglycerides that have been produced by the liver, and it's now your energy bar in your bloodstream instead of in your back pocket. Now, triglycerides are influenced by a lot of things, whether you have diabetes, your eating habits, your exercise habits, obviously, also your genetics. And so in this particular study, what we're looking for are people who have really high triglycerides, and they have to be specific, over 500 fasting, that's before eating anything in the morning. And those folks aren't real common. And so this first study is looking for those more rare individuals that happen to be born with triglycerides that are that high. One of the most important criteria is consent, is informed consent, that you've asked all your questions and you have had your questions answered, and you feel totally comfortable proceeding. Our office here in Cherryville is located at 112 South Oak Street, which is a little one-way street that comes off the middle of Main Street here in Cherryville. So they can come by the office. Carly Capps is our clinical research coordinator who is on site every day. So they could come by the office to meet her, meet the other staff here. We have other services going on here. We have a weight management clinic, and we have other services going on, but they can come by, drop by to speak to Carly and learn more. They can also go to the Tekton website, which is www.tektonresearch.com, and there's information on there about the company, ongoing studies, locations, a lot more details about Tekton and what it's doing. Or they can call 704-435-1100, so 435-1100, or they can call our dedicated Tekton line, which is 980-485-7977. We'll be seeing other studies. Like I said, there are going to be studies devoted to very common medical problems that I think people will find relevant, applicable. They'll know people in their family, or maybe they had a grandparent with a particular problem. So there'll be more coming, and we just appreciate folks in the community considering what we're doing.
Well, everyone, that's all for today. But before you go, if you haven't visited our website lately, be sure to go there and check out our articles. And if you enjoy them, you can subscribe for instant email updates whenever we publish. Be sure to subscribe here too if you haven't already. Until next time, this has been Mason Beam with the Wise News Network.